Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
You've probably heard this phrase growing up. It's one of those things that a teacher might tell you, maybe even the basketball coach at school, your parents. Practice makes perfect. Practice makes perfect. Now, let's take that concept and then add it to success. Practicing for success. How do you do that? I didn't even know that was possible. We're going to find out. She's a life coach. She's also a motivational speaker, and she's got an amazing story, amazing journey, and inspires so many people. And she is Jessica Niss. She's back with us. How are you today?
I'm very good, Steve. How are you doing?
Very well. I'm looking at this practicing for success,
Uh-huh.
and I'm trying to get a fix on it, like get my GPS on that. I kind of have an idea, but that whole concept, tell me more.
So, I think if we, where we can start is by breaking down what is success, and can look very
Mm,
differently for so many people.
yeah.
Your success, the way that you view your goals and achievements may look very differently from mine. And, that takes us then to looking at other people and ourselves. And I have often said, and I stand by it, comparison steals joy. Okay.
Mm,
So when I'm looking to someone else and saying, well, they're so successful, I could just never measure up. I'm absolutely setting myself up to basically holding myself hostage is what it does. So success ultimately is a place where we feel like we've achieved. Okay. And they can be tiny things, they can be big things. For instance, to practice success on the day to day, if you continually find yourself, let's say, punching in at work, you're always like 2 minutes late, 4 minutes late. And now, your manager's saying, listen, you should be, clocked in at such and such time. And I've been noticing it's trailing to the other side of that. Well, you need to, there are circumstances in the morning that will sometimes get in the way of you getting to work on time. But if you're seeing a trend that it's now turning into always 2 minutes, always 3 minutes, there's something that you're doing, that you're practicing at home that's getting you there at that time, whether it's hitting the snooze button or too many times, or taking that extra stop in between work or home and work that's putting you that 2 minutes behind. So the more you practice being late, the more you're going to be late. The more you practice the things that you're doing, the more it's going to happen. So if you want to practice for success and that small success of punching in for work, you start practicing different things. You practice not hitting that snooze for the third time, or perhaps, cutting off the coffee spot or the coffee stop and making your pot at home. So practicing for success looks differently. I think life on the big scale of things, success ultimately brings peace,
mm,
right?
And
And so
accomplishment. You just have this
it
feeling of, yeah.
absolutely,
And
yeah,
like you said, it looks different for everybody.
it
It,
does.
it could be, and we have, different goals and successes that we want, but to your point, and I've spoken with a lot of manifestation experts,
Mhm.
and let's just say you're in a job, you're not really crazy about it. That's probably why you're showing up late. You just, they feel if you want that perfect job, you need to envision it already here.
Yes,
It's happening. That
yes,
job is your current job, at least the feeling, the energy you put into it.
right,
Because if you just begrudgingly trudge into work two
right.
minutes late, I'm here, all right,
Mhm.
you're not going to get what you want. It's just the way the universe works. And I've done this where my current goal didn't achieve it so much today. Had some stuff going
Okay.
on. However,
Okay.
getting up earlier,
Yes.
getting up earlier. And you don't know until you know. And once I started doing it, I'm like, wow, this is more relaxing. I don't have, I feel like I got less stress. This is actually good. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm actually achieving more than I ever thought I would just
Right.
by getting up a half hour early.
Right. And the difference between, you know, checking the boxes, because we all have boxes that we need to check. The difference between the boxes that need to be checked, what you're literally saying, Steve, is that that half an hour, you're still checking all of those boxes, but the pace in which we're checking those boxes are in a more relaxed,
Mm,
pick your pace kind of environment. And I will say it again, peace in every situation creates a happier life. Not that everything's happy, not that everything's great, not that all the circumstances are going to be, cushy and mushy and favorable. But if you practice implementing the tiny things, and they are tiny things, but they do amount to big things, getting up a half an hour early, or I'm going to bring up the coffee stop again. Yeah, it only takes 5 to 7 minutes, and it's right on your way to work. But if in your life you're finding that budgetary or time-wise that it's that coffee, I always say it's a checks and balances kind of thing. At the receipts at the end of the day, are they measuring up to the energy that you poured into the things that you're doing? And
mm.
so if that coffee spot stop is bringing you good, well, good. But if you're finding that it's not, stop doing it. Figure out a different way to, get your caffeine that morning. And we're all literally just trying to get to the end of the day some days. I don't remember one day where I was like, well, I do actually, when you're celebrating and there's these joyous things where you want the day to be longer. You want more time. But really, truly, the in and out of the week is getting to the end of the day. And we all need 26, 27 hours in a day to get everything done, right? I mean, we're only given 24, but I just asked my husband the other day, what do you feel would, bring you less stress? He goes, I need more hours. I need to get more hours so that I can get everything done and not feel like it's stacking up. Well, we all can practice then. What is it? Where can we cut the fat during the day? Not to run around like it's a rat race, but again, there's two piles in life. There's the want tos and the need tos. Of course, we need to do the things that we need to do, but what are the want tos that we're doing that are inhibiting our peace, that really aren't giving us what we need?
And there's something to be said about peace. It might not be your view of success, but
Yes,
and calm. So
yes.
now you're not rushing in the
Mm,
morning. There's value on that. I don't believe we see the value in the calm and the peace. And I just want to drop in here that you pilot on the pause. And that
yes,
is the kind of foundation for your message.
it is.
Selah LLC is the name of your practice, which means pause.
Yes.
And finding the time to pause, there's major success in that. Just the peace and the
Huge,
calm. Yeah.
huge. And success, like began, is measured different ways. And, there are, it's so funny. You can view someone else and they look like they're on island time all the time, right? And someone that's running around and like their head's cut off and, they've got this to do and this to do and they've committed to this, committed to that. They can look at that person and go, wow, they're
Mm.
pretty lazy. Mm. Well, depends on how you measure how you want to feel. I feel like they're pretty successful if they can, they're doing what they need to do. They are providing for, their life and their lifestyle, and we all have different
Yep.
ways that we want our life to look. And so, my next door neighbor, I could see their big boat, their big this, their big that, but I also don't ever see them being able to use it because they're working all the time.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
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 I
And then you've got the other neighbor who has this tiny little pool and they're floating around in the afternoon and kids are splashing around, and that's success, that's in my view,
Well,
success.
those some of us that are always running around, oh, not enough time. Sometimes that's self-imposed.
Yeah,
Sometimes that's somebody running from something
true.
and keeping themselves busy so they don't have to confront whatever it may be.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
again, that's you've created a habit. This is just the way you pilot. It's the same
Yes.
thing all the time.
Yes. And not to take away, and I do want to point out, there are some life circumstances where if you don't run around, you won't have the things that you need. And I want to point out the singleness that can happen in life where you're raising a family and it's you that they count on. And I recognize the dog get tired. That happens. And um I recognize that.
Mm.
And you won't have peace if you can't feed your kids. And I understand you know, all those things. So life does look differently for a lot of people. And so for that person, if they didn't run around, it would be very different. So I do want to recognize that there is though peace in to be achieved even in that. I mean,
Yeah.
I have experienced being the sole provider, with children. And I will never forget my third son for his senior spotlight in the paper. Now, me as a mom, I've got the mom guilties all day long. I showed up to their baseball game 45 minutes late. I only caught 20 minutes of it, you know, all these things because I was working and then having to get there. And I always felt like I was on the back end failing, if you will, by showing up on time. Okay. And I did show up. Showing up is one of my love languages, even if it is only for 10 minutes. However, in a mom's mind, it's like I'm always failing. I can't be everywhere. And for Eli Sr., that's my third son's name, his senior spotlight, it said someone that you admire. And he said, my mom, she works so hard.
Mm.
you know so
Mm.
that one held my heart pretty securely, like, okay, you're not failing, mom, you're
No.
doing.
And here we go. I know where you're coming from, believe me. You probably compared, and this is where we started today, yourself to other parents,
Yes, the ones that showed up with treats for the team,
right?
had, their Capri Sun coolers all handed out, and here I am rushing, you know, did I lock the door? Did I not, on my car as I'm running up to the game so that I can see as much of the game as I can. So,
This reminds me of a story heard from a friend over the weekend, and he's he and his daughter's mom are not together. Daughter's,
sure.
I think, about 7. Yeah, she's
Okay.
7. And he never gets clarity on what's going on in his daughter's life.
Sure.
And he knew there was a softball game going on, but his ex didn't really define what was going, didn't return the texts.
Mhm.
He just shows up at the game. She's there with her boyfriend.
Oh,
He shows up at the game, and the coach is having issues pitching to the kids. And my friend steps in, superstar pitcher. Every kid hit. It was amazing. They were all cheering him. It was like
yeah.
I said, dude, you're Superman. It's
Oh,
almost like he flew in. He wasn't there. He was on the mound, I don't know, half hour.
yeah.
That was it. They
Save
were
the day.
done. Save the day. And he's out of there. I'm like, not that you needed to, but I probably felt really good in front of your ex too. He
Yes.
goes,
Yes.
they were all
Yeah.
coming. Everybody was coming up to me, high fiving me. Yeah.
It's a
And
good feeling.
yeah, but that was success for him. And
That-
to your point, only 20 minutes, whatever.
Yes.
He just showed up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
So success, there are things that we have in our control and out of our control.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Mm.
out of his control was the communication part. But you know what he did? He showed up when he did, and he took what was in front of him and he blew it out of the water.
Yeah.
And and sometimes it is we get to a circumstance or what is in front of us, and you need to pause. What is right in front of me? I could waste my energy, and I call it a waste, when you have a confrontation, a critical conversation later on is probably needed. Like, hey, how do I get a hold of this schedule? You know, as far as, speaking to your friend's situation, but a confrontation would have taken away at that moment if you would have arrived and saw them there and said, why do I always have to find out later? Don't confront it right then. You pause
Yeah.
and you say, how
Pause.
can I make the best of what's going on right in front of me? And he did. And like I said, bar none, Superman saved the day. I'm sure that his child was
Oh,
just being with like, that's my dad. He's
yep.
Superman, you
And
know?
the pause so important. And this is the lesson that my friend has learned. And I met him through a men's group that I'm in. And part of the lessons is basically the pause.
It is.
Stop.
Yeah.
Why are you going to engage? Don't fight any battles with opponents that are just, it's not even worth it, essentially.
Right.
And
Right.
he's kind of a new man. He even says, in the past, in these situations, I would get mad, I get angry, I blow up. It's like, well, I just bite my tongue and that's it, and just do my thing. And
Yes,
it's really about the pause because, like you
it is.
said, he could have showed up and walked up to his ex. Why did you tell me the game was
Right.
going on? No,
Right.
he just proactive because you can't control that. What you can control is find the schedule on a website for the school,
Yeah.
whatever it is. I even had this conversation with another friend this morning who's going through a situation and said, always remember you can't control what you can't
No,
control, so you got to let it
no,
go.
you do. And letting it go doesn't mean that you don't care.
Right.
And letting it go doesn't mean that the circumstance that you're frustrated about or that you feel you've been wronged, let's say, by the lack of communication. Because communication, you and I both know, Steve, you're in the communication field. It can make or break any situation.
Yeah.
Miscommunication can make or break any. So communication at the core, and communication, if you look at what it is about understanding. The whole of communication is about understanding. And the more you're looking at someone else or something and saying, I want to understand you better, I don't need to input. I already know how I think and how I feel. I myself, and I gauge all the things that I am up against by how, we all have this collective tank of how we were raised, who we modeled after, how did we feel in that situation? Am I going to protect myself? Am I not going to protect myself? And sometimes those walls of protection do get in the way in adult conversations, because you might
Mhm.
miss a very pivotal point of understanding the other person, because either A, you don't want to feel uncomfortable. And sometimes truth is uncomfortable. But Steve, I don't know about you, but I don't care what the truth is, whether it's comfy, uncomfy, whether it's favorable, unfavorable. I can deal with truth. I can set my feet on truth and start from there. When there's a misunderstanding or a a concealment, or things aren't you know transparent, you tend to then make up the scenario depending on how you're feeling about it. Now, my gut says I'm not getting a full truth here, therefore I don't trust you, I don't trust the deliverer. And so there's no understanding then, when sometimes it just comes down to trusting. Okay, this person didn't trust you with the full of it, whether it was to conceal it out of spite, to conceal it out of safety, to conceal it. But I guess the point I'm getting at is, if we're going to be successful, we need to be good communicators. And the first person we need to communicate with is ourselves. Knowing, pausing and reflecting yourself. How am I going to go into this situation? How do I normally practice something like when something like this comes up? Is it successful at the end of the conversation? If I go in guns a-blazing, how'd that turn out? So, and if you continually are hitting your head up against a wall with maybe the same individual, start practicing a different way of approach. don't make don't make that person the villain in the situation. Take the situation, what's going on, and attack that, and become an understanding of how I look at it and how you look at it obviously is different. Doesn't mean that you're wrong or that I'm wrong or that either of us are all the way right. But don't we want to come together, especially when you're trying to um, have a cohesive relationship? Sometimes you don't need to have a day-to-day relationship, but like you and I were talking about your friend before, the co-parenting, you're not living in the same realm of space all day long, right? But your commonality, the common denominator is that child. So you want to show up for the game. Maybe the other person doesn't care whether or not you're there or not, but your child does. So how am I going to make it? If I can't control that they're giving me the schedule, how am I going to make it? What am I going to practice in order to make sure that I'm there for my kid?
Yeah.
It's not someone else's fault all the time.
Yeah, I've taken away two things here in the last couple of minutes. And for me, I pilot now on the facts.
Mhm.
That started about 4 or 5 years ago,
Yes,
and it just uh, did you there's no gray territory. There's no
right.
facts are facts. This
They
is
are.
it. This is it. And
Yes.
communication is understanding. And I had a thought here that, and let's say you want to engage with somebody and you you want to present it in the best light. You don't want to accuse or anything. These words just came to mind in a text or it could be an email. Help me understand.
Oh, I say it. I just got goosebumps, Steve. Just help me understand. First of all, diffuse a lot
Mm-hmm.
of things. Second of all, the feeling of wanting information from someone when that other person isn't feeling like they're on the defense or the offense, that they're actually in a
Right.
helper mode,
Mm-hmm. People want to help.
they do want to help. And that creates a whole other level of a channel of understanding, because now you're not coming in with only needing them to know how you feel and how about the subject. And they're not trying to, the whole time you're talking, thinking about, oh, that one thing she just said, I need to respond to that, and not listening to you know, the other important things to you that you need them to know. Help me understand.
Mm.
It's such a
It has to
simple,
be
inviting phrase.
genuine. It's got to be
It
genuine.
does.
It can't be a
It
passive
does.
aggressive. Help me understand why you're such an idiot. No,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
that's not going to
Yeah.
work. Not going to
No,
work.
it's not going to work. And you and I both know communication doesn't
Mm,
matter what language you speak, or even if you can speak with your words out of your mouth or your hands or whatever the language is. Communication is so much more than words. It's only 5% words, right?
yeah. Yeah.
So, you're coming in with your body language, you're coming in with your tone, you're coming in with, you know, just all the mechanics that your body can give off. I love the meme and I see it pop up on my feed sometimes. It says, "Man, I really hate it that my face shows what my brain is thinking." And
Mm,
all the while I'm trying to, not let them know. I don't remember exactly how it goes down, but basically, you're not saying anything, nothing. But the other person is receiving the fact that either you're displeased or you're appalled or, you're
sure.
flipped about it. It's these facial expressions, these body stances, all of it counts. And so help me understand, you'll know if it's genuine.
Yeah.
First of all, giving it, whether it's genuine, because it will be, but receiving it also, depending on the situation and who you're with and how well you know that person,
Oh yeah.
help and does need to be genuine. You're
And
absolutely
put it
spot
through
on.
the three filter. Is it kind?
Yes.
Is it necessary? And just what we're talking about here, is it true? Put it through the filter there before you say, help me
Yeah.
understand, because you may be
Yes.
using help me understand the wrong way,
Right.
with the wrong intent, shall we
With the
say.
wrong intent.
Jessica, how do we find you? You work with people, coach them along the way, hold them accountable for a lot of this. What's the best way to find you?
Well, you can go to my website. It is SelahLLC.net. That's SELAHLLC.net. On there, there is a contact button. Otherwise, you can email me directly. It's Jessica Niss dot or at SelahLLC.net. So both of those ways, I have been receiving some really good, questions from individuals. Do you do this one-on-one? Is it just a group setting? Would you do Zoom? Yes, yes, and yes, all of it. I really have enjoyed pretty much my whole life connecting, and through life circumstance, I have been able to, through so many resources, my faith is the founding resource, and then other people along the way just holding you up. Your personal best each day doesn't necessarily look like everyone else's, especially when you're going through struggles. But eventually, your personal best shines so bright in your testimony. And so I feel very blessed to be able to put some purpose to my pain. And I feel very blessed to be able to connect with others and hopefully champion them to know that they matter and that everything that has happened matters, and that they too have the ability to create their personal best during the day by never giving up.
And practice for success.
Yes.
Thank you so much for today. Competition, just final, we're out of time, but you said it at the beginning and I want to remember it. Competition or comparing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
How did that go? Comparing your
Comparison steals joy.
joy. Thank you.
Yes, you're very welcome.
Thank you for today. Looking forward next time we get together.
Sounds good, Steve. You take care.
You too. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.